Hey everyone, Django Fett here, Honey Nine Games, Comics, TV shows, movies, and more, and this is a review for Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron Omnibus Volume 3. This omnibus contains 5 stories, contains X-Wing Rogue Squadron issues number 21 to 35, and includes the In the Empire Service, the Making of Baron Fell, Family Ties, Masquerade, and Mandatory Retirement story arcs. And have to just say this new disclaimer, but I do need to spoil the stories in order to go through them. Not all of them, of course, but I do want to spoil some of them. And all these stories are set in 4 years after the Battle of Yavin, except for the last story, Mandatory Retirement, so I'll only share the months after the Battle of Endor for these stories, so it doesn't become repetitive. First is In the Empire Service, which released in 1997. This story was written by Michael A. Stackpole and drawn by John Nadeau. This story is set 9 months after the Battle of Endor, and Rogue Squadron has a new mission, and that is to capture Brental 4. However, the Imperials expect that, and Yasani Yasard sends their top weapon in Baron Fell, the best TIE fighter pilot in the Empire, to lead the defense. Things are not so easy for the Rogues this time around, but in the end they manage to defeat the Empire. This is an important story not only for Fell, but also showing, for the first time in the comics, Sate Pestage, the right-hand man to Palpatine, and featured in the films. I think it's the first time in the comics, but I may be wrong. And Pestage is an evil head figure who is the reigning leader of the Empire. However, we know there are several other warlords at the time, including Zinj. And his life is not so easy to command the Empire because his second in command is none other than Yasani Yasar, the cruelest, most conniving leader of the Empire. And she's playing her own game and trying to assume control for the Empire for her own twisted version. This was a pretty good story with the Rogues having a real competitor with Fell, and a nice ending with him not dying but captured and revealing that he got married to Wedge's sister in the end. You gotta love these cliffhangers that Stackpole does. Also, artwork by John Nadeau is fantastic and love seeing the awesome space battles. The second story is The Making of Baron Fell, which released in 1997 and was written by Michael A. Stackpole and drawn by Steve Crespo. This story is set 10 months after the Battle of Endor, and we start with Baron Fell, or Sontir Fell, captured by the Republic and recounting his past of becoming an Imperial ace, with a few rogues featured before they left for the rebels. He eventually found love and married Wynassa Starflare, which we know is Syal Antilles, or Wedge's sister, and revealed more screwed up things he did with the Empire and more screwed up things with Yasani Yasard, and how you started to see in the last story and now here that Fell doubted her and saw how evil she was and must be stopped. And it's later revealed that because of his hostility with Yasard, that he orders his wife to disappear and not tell him, and he would find her later. He finishes his story and tells Wedge he will serve the Republic in order to get aid to find and save his wife. So, a pretty good backstory with Baron Fell, but not as great as Big Darkslider's epic backstory. But he did end up being a sympathetic Imperial, but someone who, despite seeing so much evil, stayed with them, unlike Tycho and Hobby and Biggs, and took a capture by the Republic to see the evil. So a little selfish and self-righteous by Fell. The next story is Family Ties, which came out in 1998. Once again written by Michael A. Stackpole and drawn by Jim Hall and Drew Johnson. In this, the Rogues, including Fell, now must go to Corellia to find Fell's wife. However, they don't find her, and it's someone else instead, and we run into a future rogue in Corran Horn and a future Republic agent, Iella Westry. Honestly, a bad story that ends terribly with just a few cool appearances, but it doesn't really save it. Also, what was up with Plor, now just a member of the Rogues again, not royalty anymore? I guess she doesn't have to fucking worry about it. And she has hair again, and just a hothead at this point, and just wants to beat everything up. Just an idiot now. What the hell? I thought she was wonderfully crafted in her backstory in I think the first or second volume, and now she's just a complete moron now. I don't get it. The next story is Masquerade, which released in 1998 and written by Michael A. Stackpole and drawn by Drew Johnson. This story is set 11 months after the Battle of Endor, and this story involves Sate Pestage getting really worried by his own Imperial members not really liking his rule, so he wants to find a way out of the Empire and wants to make contact with the New Republic. There are a few other storylines for the Republic, but I really won't get into a lot of different storylines and plot lines, and I just felt like the story was a little everywhere and hard to follow at times, and just not great. Art by Drew Johnson was fine in the end. And the last story is Mandatory Retirement, which released in 1998 and written by Michael A. Stackpole and drawn by Steve Crespo and John Nadeau. This is the only story set 5 years after the Battle of Yavin, or 1 year after the Battle of Endor. In this story, the rogues do the most unlikely thing ever, and that's to save an Imperial lord, and that's Sate Pestage at Sutrik. This was what Leia promised in the end, that they would do this in return for the grand prize in Coruscant. So they mount a suicide mission with insane odds, of course, because that's how the rogues do it. And this time we have Baron Fel actually being thrown into the mix this time, because he wasn't really trusted to this point to be on missions, but he's going to do it, which is awesome. Also, Yasani Yasard knows the rebels will be trying to save Pestage and wants to stop them, but her new leaders in Coruscant don't want her to do anything, and of course are inept. And she won't have any of that and wants to stop the Republic at the same time. Honestly, this story had everything. A ton of action and suspense, and one rogue actually dies, who you have seen commonly throughout the comics, and I won't spoil who. The artwork by Crespo and Nadeau is also great, and I think the best in the Rogue Squadron comics by far. So I'm going to give the X-Wing Rogue Squadron Volume 3 Omnibus a... So I have to say, it's honestly really hard to get these omnibuses right now, as they were the first ever in the Dark Horse Omnibus collections. So get them used if you can, but a better option would be to get the Marvel Epic collections, or if you're willing to spend the money, get the New Republic Omnibus Volume 1, which comes out now actually and collects every single X-Wing Rogue Squadron comic, minus maybe like 1 or 2. And that is the final volume of the series, and I would say it's the best of the bunch for sure. But unfortunately, I do feel there is a lot left out and not addressed, such as Baron Fel not finding his wife, which is kind of the main point of him joining the Republic in the first place. But he will get reunited with his wife after Yasani Yasard captures him and sends him to Thrawn to help protect the Outer Rim from an unknown threat that will strike eventually. And then I guess he will see his wife as well. And unfortunately, that's it for the X-Wing Rogue Squadron comics, and I do wish there were more comics now, just because this series was getting really good now. But that's why we have the novels, and can't wait to dive into those more again soon. So that's it for the comic reviews. I'm going to get back into reviewing the novels, and don't forget to please like this video, comment down below, tell me what you think of this omnibus in the comment section below, tell me what you think of these stories, and subscribe to my channel, Django Fett, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.